watching News 18 Special Debate. Election news from where you live.
We're back from our break, and I want to welcome the candidates for the Wabash Township trustee to the stage. The candidates are Democrat Angel Valentin and Republican Eric Hopenians. We'll follow the same format as used for the Fairfield Township debate. We drew names from a hat to determine who would give the first opening statement. Eric won the drawing, so I invite him to begin.
Okay. The three biggest challenges facing Wabash Township are how we will grow our department in an efficient and cost-effective way, how we will provide township assistance in a period of record inflation and a coming recession, and how do we restore public trust within the office. At its core, our department is a volunteer department. Therefore, my plan for rebuilding will focus on increasing volunteer membership and retention. We will then supplement the volunteers with enough paid staff to maintain at least 2 firefighters on duty at all times. And then finally, we will establish a student resident program to further increase on-call numbers. And once we're at the staffing levels that will allow, we will then explore the addition of an ambulance service to increase the department's service to the community, as well as generate additional revenue to offset property taxes. There is no doubt that the current economic conditions are having a very negative impact on those that are vulnerable. So it's imperative that the township office act not only as a provider of emergency services or emergency assistance, but also serve as a facilitator to provide connections to other service agencies. My office will act as this facilitator for those seeking assistance and will work with those who qualify to not only meet their immediate need, but help them reestablish self-reliance. Finally, as trustee, I will work to rebuild a public trust for the office by establishing and strictly adhering to written and board-approved policies regarding township financing and the use of credit and debit cards. Consistent communication with the board and public reporting will be key in this rebuilding effort. As trustee, I will utilize my 12 years of experience as a small business owner to operate the township office as a functional business entity, balancing the wants and needs of a department with available funding, as well as aid those in need in a compassionate and timely manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Angel?
Hi, I'm Angel Valentin, and I have had the honor of serving as the Wabash Township trustee since January. Since then, we have rehired our township firefighters, gotten them health care, and for the first time in the township's history, placed them on the state's firefighting pension. Simultaneously, we have begun recruiting new volunteers that will continue to complement our growing community's continued investment on paid staff. Using my experience as a resource coordinator at Food Finders Food Bank, we have restarted our township assistance program and begun to help residents in need be able to access other resources in the community. We have done so by working with nonprofit organizations, churches, and other faith groups. Over the next 4 years, Wabash Township will continue to grow. We already offer fire protection to a population of over 21,000 residents, with an increasingly diverse population. The challenges we face as we continue growing will require us to work with elected officials and stakeholders across the community, including West Lafayette, Area Plan Commission, and other stakeholders, neighboring municipalities, Shelby Township, which we have an agreement with, etc. We are committed to restoring trust in the trustee's office, and we will continue working to provide quality services, which I hope to highlight for all of you today. I believe my experience serving on local government boards and community boards makes me uniquely qualified to carry out this job. And I hope that you join our firefighters union at the state and the local level and so many of our residents in supporting our campaign.
Thank you. First question is for Angel. How will you build and maintain trust between yourself and the township residents you serve?
It is very important for us to be able to build and maintain that trust. Over the last six or so months, we have been out knocking on doors, talking with voters, making sure that people hear the perspective that we bring to the township office. We also when I was a member of the board, created a township website, because prior to that, we had a shell case, if you will, of a township website. And we've used that website to be able to put information on there, to be able to make information available, meetings, minutes, videos, recordings, agendas, all of that sort of stuff. But also making sure that when we have presentations that we bring, or when we bring speakers from the community to be able to highlight our growth, that we make that accessible to folks. Now, that's only a start. We're continuing to work with more professional firms to be able to develop better website that's able and more accessible for users, because we had a simple website to be able to do that. But we want to be able to communicate that, so we're going to keep doing that and working with other folks, hearing our constituents, seeing if there are other ways that we're able to do that. But I know that over the last 9 months or so, we've done a good job of trying to rebuild that trust. It doesn't mean that we always agree with every resident, but we work to communicate with the board, we work to communicate with our constituents. We have a really open policy. I'm really proud that in the last few months, we did a deep dive really into what our next budget is going to look, because we wanted to make sure that we didn't just spring it on people. That's what's happened in the past. We just do a meeting once a year, and that's the budget. And we wanted to really have a good conversation about what the need is and what we're hoping to accomplish.
Eric, how will you build and maintain the trust between yourself and the township residents you serve?
Okay, as I said in the opening statement, building and maintaining trust, the number one thing we can do is develop and really strictly adhering to policies that are approved by the township board, which is the checks and balances of township government. The second thing is just open, honest, and effective communication. The website is a great place to start. Out of that, people are very concerned with how township money is spent. Township residents have an absolute right to know exactly how money is spent in the township. There's no such thing as trustee confidential information when it comes to funds. So they should have a very easy, a very convenient place to go to find such information. And that township website is an excellent place. Monthly budget reports should be posted there every single month after that. Along with that, if we can't at least post reports, at a very minimum, you can provide links to where the information can be found on Gateway. So keeping those lines of communications open to the public and maintaining at least some decorum with them and easy access to that information will go a very long way of restoring that public trust. Unfortunately, some of that still isn't happening in the township. The website is up. There are some financial reports on there, but they haven't been updated since March. That needs to be up every single month from now until the end of anyone's term. Only that consistent, repeated effort over a period of years will public trust actually return for good into the trustee's office.
Do you have a rebuttal, Angel?
No, that's fine.
Eric, do you have a rebuttal?
No.
Okay.
Eric, would you please describe your plan to staff the fire department with paid professionals and volunteers over the next 4 years?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I said in the opening statement, our fire department was founded as a volunteer fire department 50 years ago, and it maintained its volunteer status up until recently. There's no question that we have to supplement those volunteers now with paid staff. The discussion should be, though, is how many paid staff we actually bring on board. Because in any organization, human resources are by far the most expensive portion and most expensive cost for running that organization. So over the past few months, I've been discussing with fire chiefs across the state and across the country what their best practices were for rebuilding a department such as ours and transitioning into a combination department. And essentially their advice is a consistent, focused effort on recruiting and retaining volunteers will bring back the volunteers in the numbers that you require. For Wabash Township, I think 50 to 55 is a good estimate. We then supplement with up to 6 career firefighters, give that some time, reevaluate the situation in 6 to 8 months, and as a department decide if we need to increase paid staff even further. One of the main jobs as a trustee, though, is to really look out and defend the taxpayer. So we have to control some of these uncontrolled or runaway costs now within the department. Over the past 5 years, our spending level has increased from roughly $250,000 in operating costs in 2019 to a proposed $1.2 million in 2023. That's a 400% increase in operating costs. If we follow the 5-year plan laid out in April, we will hit our new maximum levy in 2 years. Overall, that'll equate to almost a 690% increase in property taxes for firefighting operations. It does not have to be that way. If we focus on maintaining and recruiting volunteers, they will come into the numbers. We can supplement them with a minimum of career staff.
Angel, will you please describe your plans to staff the fire department with paid professionals and volunteers over the next 4 years?
Certainly. We have been working really with our firefighters, not just in our department, but neighboring departments as well. We have really looked at the minimum staffing levels as well as what NFPA standards dictate. To be able to roll out of the door and roll out an engine, we require 4 firefighters on that engine. So what we've really been challenged with has been the fact that we don't have that. What that looks like for us is on a daily basis, we might have a couple of paid personnel if we have a part-timer available and a volunteer there. If we're lucky, we're able to roll out an engine with 3 to 4, but that's if we're lucky. Most of the time, we either have to sit down and wait for volunteers to show up, or our paid firefighters go out into the community and don't have the level of staffing they need to begin operating and scene. That has a lot of impacts, and I know Mr. Hopinyan spoke about taxpayer rates. The reality is our taxpayer rate has been just hovering above 2 cents for the last decade until 2021 taxpayer rate. And the 2 cents is 1/20th of what neighboring departments such as West Lafayette and Lafayette pay for their fire protection. So what we're going to be doing is listening to our firefighters, making sure that we have a minimum staffing of at least 3 paid firefighters per shift and working to complement those volunteer pools. Mr. Hopinyan's mentioned 50 to 55 volunteers. That's our plan. That's what we've been working towards. We currently have a recruit class of about 6 new volunteer firefighters, and we're continuing to grow those numbers. But for perspective, at the largest time in our 30-year history, our department has only had 35 volunteers, which we need to outfit all of those pieces. And we can't do that. We can't do that. Our proposed tax rate, even if we were to max out all of it, which is not what we're going for, would be 17 cents versus West Lafayette 40. We right now are looking at 10 cents and probably about 12 cents in the long run. So,
Eric, would you like a rebuttal?
Yes, I would say the first thing I would say about that is you really can't compare tax rates with West Lafayette or any of the neighboring departments. Those are career departments. We are not. We are a volunteer department, and that's one of the gifts that volunteers give the unincorporated area is that much lower tax rate. We can rely on them to provide excellent fire protection. The last 6 months of 2021, when we didn't have career staff, those volunteers showed up, and they were excuse me. Go ahead. Sorry.
Angel, would you like to rebuttal?
Yeah. I would mention that the volunteers showed up, but oftentimes it was just one guy, and it was waiting for West Lafayette to send a crew. So we need to make sure that they're properly staffed, and I understand it's an important part of our community, but we're serving 21,000 residents, and they expect a higher level of care, both in medical services and fire protection as well.
All right, our third question for Angel is, do you think the taxpayers are prepared for significant tax increases to pay for the township's emergency services over the next 4 years?
That is a fantastic question. We don't take lightly the increase that we are proposing here. But we also recognize that it's absolutely necessary. 2021, as Mr. Hopinyan's and his website indicate, is the only year when we would have been able to support a career staff of 3 paid firefighters on staff at all. And we're looking to do an increase that is about 22.6% from where that was for this year. Obviously, it'll go a little bit up over the coming years as well. But what we're really focused on is making sure that we can provide a quality fire protection. I'll use Mr. Hopinyan's property value, for example. He would be seeing about an increase of just under $50 a year for fire protection. Now, we're not saying that's nothing. We recognize that is taxpayers' hard-earned money. But what you're getting in return is making sure that your community is safe, that your family is safe, and that our firefighters' families get to be certain that at the end of the day, we are doing our best effort to ensure that they come home at the end of the day. And I'm serious about this. Our community fought last year for our firefighters to be back. They saw the value in our fire protection, and it's about time that we listen to what they're telling us. They're telling us that they need this minimum staffing to be able to do the job. If we do anything other than that, we're letting them down and letting our constituents down.
All right, Eric, do you think that taxpayers are prepared for significant tax increases to pay for the township's emergency services over the next 4 years?
I do not. The main reason for that, the board and the trustee did do a decent job this year of advertising the budget and walking through the budget with people that were in the township meetings. I will tell you there were maybe 3 people at the meetings at most. So I don't think word's getting out quite yet out of this. There is a scheduled open house to happen in roughly 2 weeks to walk through the budget and the future growth opportunities for the fire department with the public. But that's 2 weeks too late before they ever had a chance to come in and comment on the proposed increases. And as far as preparedness, we are entering into a recession. It's almost a given. Angel, I appreciate him using my property values as a benchmark to increase that. It'll go up, I think he said, roughly $50 next month or next year. He's right. That's not much money for me. For some people, that's a week's worth of groceries. And that's not right out of this. They can weather that storm a little bit, but if this rate keeps going up, roughly 25 to 26% a year, it's going to become a problem for a very large number of residents in our area. So we need to control those growths. And the way that you control those growth is to rely on your volunteers and that volunteer staff. They have provided excellent fire service for 50 years since they were formed. We are at a higher number of runs. I understand that, and we were growing. That does not mean we have to transition to a career department overnight. We can rely on those volunteers to reduce those property taxes for the foreseeable future, supplement them with a minimum of career staff, to make sure at least 2 people are on a truck to leave that office. Go ahead.
All right, Angel, would you like a rebuttal?
Yeah, so a couple of things. I know that he said that the people didn't have a time to be able to come in. We have 4 public meetings in that same time frame where we were discussing the budget. There's plenty of opportunity for folks to go out. We've also gone out and talked to about 5,500 voters so far and talked to them about the growth that we're doing and the increase in staffing that we're going to be seeing. So we're making sure to communicate that with folks. And just a reminder, the tax rate is $48 for you, Mr. Hopenians, but it depends on the value of the house. If you own a significantly smaller house, it might be $30, it might be $20. So.
All right, Eric, would you like a rebuttal?
Yes, I would say, like I said, they did do a good job explaining it during the meetings. Some additional community outreach, maybe the open house before the budget was approved would have been very helpful. People really need to know what this impact is going to be on their property taxes over the next few years. So a little additional community outreach would have gone a long way.
All right, Eric, our 4th question is, your township will have a budget of in excess of $1 million next year with a growing professional firefighting company. What experience do you have managing a business organization of this size?
So I've owned and operated my own engineering firm for the past 12 years. Operating budgets and operating budget this size, I would say, is really the average operating budget for some of the projects that we have going on right now. We have several federal contracts that we're working on. Our biggest one is a $6.5 million 3-year program with DARPA. Indiana Micro is the lead on that. We have several partners around the country and actually around the world performing on that. So we are managing that. We just had our phase 1 review this summer where it was a down select. It was Indiana Micro competing against much larger firms, established defense contractors. We beat them. out of that. And we beat them by doing more with less because we are a small company. We're a little more agile out of that, and we're able to do these things with this. Properly managing that budget, though, is a huge thing for all of these things. The government expects us to deliver components at the end of all of our contracts, and we do that. And we do that in a cost-effective manner, and we've been doing so for 12 years. That's the kind of experience that I can bring into the township and managing that township office as a functional business entity. It's not much different out of that. It's knowing what you have to work with and doing the absolute best you can with that money.
All right, Angel, your township will have a budget in excess of $1 million next year with a growing professional firefighting company. What experience do you have managing a business or organization of this size?
So my experience doesn't come from the business world, but I will actually commend Mr. Hoppenyans. His business is part of the reason why our community is growing. Those type of businesses are the reason why we are seeing such an increased growth in population in our community. It's the reason why more folks are coming to our community, and it's the reason why we need to make sure that when they come here expecting a West Lafayette level of fire protection, that they're able to receive that. So I sincerely want to congratulate Mr. Hoppenyans. That's part of the reason we're thriving, because of investments from small business owners, to medium businesses, to giant businesses like Skywater coming in with a $2 billion investment. As far as the experience that I have, in addition to being the township trustee this past year, having served on the board, providing oversight to the budget, and previous years especially, in much more difficult circumstances than the ones that we're currently dealing with, I've also worked as a member. I also work as a member of the City Bus Board, and I also serve on the board of the Wesley Foundation, which is a campus ministry. Additionally, I've also worked with other nonprofits. I haven't been in a leadership capacity at other nonprofits outside of the ones I've mentioned, but we've worked with budgets that big. I understand the constraints that we're under, and we want to be able, as Mr. Hoppenyan said, to do more with less. However, we can't do it at a significantly lower rate than what we're proposing, because then our staff won't be able to be safe. Then we'll still be relying on volunteers, and it'll make sure that the response rate is slower. We want to make sure that we're providing quality fire protection, that we can get on scene, that we can provide auto aid to other departments, but also that we are working to ensure that we're not spending West Lafayette's resources by having to call them to cover for us beyond what is reasonable and expected, because that's what's been happening. They're paying 4 times as much, and their tax rates are leaving the city to be able to cover for us.
All right, Eric, would you like a rebuttal?
Yeah.
Anna, would you like a rebuttal? Okay.
Angel, this question is for you. How many hours per week do you plan to devote to being a township trustee? Will this be a full-time position for you?
Yes, I am envisioning it being a full-time position. We have been working really hard to make sure that we grow the scope of what we're doing, not just through taxpayer dollars, but also looking for grants and other opportunities. A big part of what the township trustee's job is obviously the fire department, but a lot of the day-to-day job is making sure that we are able to provide assistance to people in need. Now, and that might be a small part of the budget, but it's a really important part of what we do on a day-to-day basis. So I want to be able to continue working with building relationships with other nonprofits, with churches. We spent part of this year, I jokingly referred to it as our church tour. We went around, and a lot of the partners that I've known in the community through my experience through the Wesley Foundation and Methodist Campus Ministry, we met with a lot of the Methodist churches around here. We met with Catholic churches around here. We wanted to see what the scope of the services that they provide are. And we also want to continue working with them, with other nonprofits, and be able to build a better system of assistance, because we want to make sure that our taxpayer dollars go further. For example, that might mean we help someone with medications at cost, and they're able to pay the rent. Because if they have to choose their life-saving medications first, they might not be able to pay the rent. But we're able to cover medications as well. And so we want to be able to provide more assistance and be able to work with our community and to have a more active role, because it's a big enterprise. Mr. Hoppenyan said it's a $1 million budget, and it's taxpayers' dollars. So we want to make sure that we're doing a good job of seeking grants and other opportunities and working to build the future of our community with Area Plan, West Lafayette, et cetera. So I think it requires a full-time commitment if we're looking at a lot of growth, and we want to do it right.
Thank you. Eric, how many hours per week do you plan to devote to being a township trustee? Will this be a full-time position for you?
It will not be a full-time position. As I said, I'm an owner and operator of my own engineering firm. That is my career. There are 13 townships in Tippecanoe County. None of them are a full-time position. They are all part-time. Trustee is not a career path. It is not a career position to be in. It is true. The township assistance needs is going to increase over the next couple of years. That will be a major time sink. But if you optimize the application process, that can be managed out of that. Tippecanoe Township does nearly as much as us in township assistance in a number of cases. Their trustee is not full-time. Actually, their trustee had enough time to help out Wabash Township at the beginning of the year to get our finances in order. He is the reason why we have a fire department this year. That was Bill Jones. So there is time in my schedule to manage this properly. And I agree with Angel. Part of that job is going to be networking with other resources within the community to figure out and grow a network to where we can send people in need to seek out more permanent solutions and more permanent assistance for what they're requiring. Township assistance is not a permanent solution. It's essentially a one-time emergency payment after that. So we need to network. We have to find the organizations that can provide a permanent access to medications like RIGS out of that. We can find organizations that can provide a more permanent route of assistance or financial assistance for that. Find companies within the community that are second chance companies that are known or willing to hire felons, wanting to get back on their feet out of that. All of that takes time, but all of that can be managed.
All right. Thank you so much. We've reached the end of the question period of our debate. I would like to now ask the candidates to deliver their closing statements. Eric, you'll go first.
Excellent. Okay. Township government should seek to provide exceptional service while minimizing the cost tax burden on its residents. In short, the trustees should do more with less. By utilizing assets within the township, we can not only grow our fire department to better serve our community, but also provide additional services that can impact the entire township while reducing the tax burden on its residents. I am the son of a fallen firefighter. My dad was chief of my hometown volunteer fire department when he was killed in the line of duty. I care deeply about the future and direction of our department, and I will work with the department leadership to ensure that they have the tools and the staff required to complete their mission in a safe and effective manner. But I will do so with impact on taxpayers in mind. Creating a cost-effective fire department requires a responsive volunteer base. In the second half of last year, the volunteers supported all of the necessary responsibilities for fire protection in our community. It is proof that our township can depend on our volunteers. Also, by developing common sense policies on the administration of township assistance, as well as building a network of additional service providers, the trustee's office can have a very positive impact on those seeking assistance. And can provide a pathway for those seeking to once again become self-reliant. And finally, effective lines of communication between the trustee's office, the board, and the public, and easy access to records will rebuild the public trust in the office. If elected trustee, these are the three things I will ensure during my time.
Angel?
Fundamentally, the choice that Wabash Township residents will face at the ballot box this November is one of public safety. Do we want to continue to defer much-needed investments in our community's fire protection and emergency medical services in an effort to present an illusion of keeping costs as low as possible? Or do we get serious about investing in and strengthening both sides of our combination department so that we can meet the needs of our growing community now and in the future? I believe that choice is pretty easy. We must ensure that we have sufficient paid personnel and volunteer firefighters to protect the lives and properties of our 21,000 residents, the countless students that live here, and the people that just come through our community. Deferring our needed investments in fire protection would not be fiscally responsible. We would be neglecting our responsibility to provide quality fire protection, and it will result in larger costs to taxpayers in the future. Not only will Chief Ward's and my plan protect our residents, but it will also decrease the risk and dangers our firefighters face when carrying out their dangerous public service jobs, which is why the Professional Firefighters Union of Indiana, the Wabash Township Professional Firefighters Local Union, as well as the Lafayette Local Union have announced that they are supporting my campaign for trustee. Together, we can ensure that our community is safe, and that when a resident faces an emergency need, be it the threat of eviction, the lack of insulin, a fire, or a medical emergency, they are protected by our township government. And that is why I'm asking for your support when you go out and cast your ballot between October 12th and November 8th of this year. Thank you.
I want to thank the candidates for their participation this evening. To find out more about these candidates and all the candidates on your November ballot, we encourage you to use the League of Women Voters online voter guide at www.411.org. I also want to thank the Lafayette School Corporation and Jefferson High School for hosting our event. Early in-person voting starts October 12th and Election Day is November 8th. Please confirm your voter registration and make a plan to vote.